So today we're going to be looking at the Be Quiet Dark Base 701. This is going to be the popular update to the last Be Quiet Dark Base 700. And recently I also did a build in the Be Quiet 901, the bigger version, which has like so many cool little things, like a little area for you to charge your phone, and it has RGB also for people that want that. Very, very awesome cases. In fact, one of my favorite cases going back even previously was the 900. That was as well the biggest version, and I even did a really nice water-cooled setup there. I just love the way you can invert the motherboard, the way that everything worked, like very high quality. It was definitely very refreshing building in these earlier Be Quiet cases compared to the usual cases that you have on the market. Stuff like, the Lian Li Dynamic, that's a fantastic case as well, but I've done so many builds in them, you get a little bit bored, and all of the other cases become a little bit cookie cutter, so the Be Quiet cases have been pretty interesting. Now, has the Be Quiet 701 continued that trend? Is it pretty much like a unique case that if you're tired of building in the regular, steel boxes, if you will, is this something that's going to have something unique? Well, let's take a look at it and let's see exactly what we have here. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows 10 Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. So this is the Dark Base 701. You can see this one is going to be the more stealth version. It's a little bit more blacked out. Now this one does not come with RGB fans. Be Quiet do make some cases like the 500FX, for example, that will have some integrated RGB fans. These fans are just the excellent Silent Wings for the 140mm. This is going to be the newer version of their fans, and these are the type of case fans, we're going to start there, that you basically can just use in your build. For a lot of cheaper cases or cases that maybe don't have the same level of build quality, sometimes you get the fans in it and immediately you take them out and you put in something better, right? Well, for the builds that I like to do, especially the high-end builds, most of the time I'm going to be using these Be Quiet fans anyway, like the, they have the Pro version of these, they have the regular Silent Wings. I've used the third version a lot. In fact, in the 900 case build that I did, that was all the Be Quiet fans. Really good performance, and the noise profile is also very, very good. So that makes sense that you would have, the three nicely included fans. Definitely love that. So one of the biggest items here that is going to be the most obvious factor, how is the airflow? This with, GPUs really pumping lots of heat into the case, stuff like the 4090, 4080, 4070 Ti, even AMD 7900 XTX. Most of those GPUs, they're not blower style anymore like it used to be a few years ago. These GPUs are primarily, 2 or 3 fan designs, and therefore all that hot air is going to get blown inside of the case. Be Quiet, like for the 900, was a lot more sealed. If you look at like how the way the front panel was, everything was closed off for silence, and GPUs were different back then. Now, especially with the updated 901 and with this 701, you can see that there are a lot of mesh panels. You could see right through the front. Even if I put my hand in the middle, you can see it's basically see-through, meaning that air is also going to get by. And the same, of course, holds true for the top section of the case. So not only do you have plenty of space for, a lot of fans on the front, on the top, on the back as normal, everything is like a really nice mesh. So airflow is going to be fantastic. In my experience, the more high quality fans that you have, especially if they're like 140mm, you're going to have less noise. You would think, oh, your system has so many fans, it's going to be noisy. Not really, because more fans means that you can run them all at lower RPMs, keeping the air moving, especially if they're good fans like this already. They have a pretty good noise profile at lower RPMs while still maintaining, good airflow. That means that more fans, you're going to be more quiet. So that really, really works with the whole Be Quiet mantra. In fact, I think it works even better than the sealed off cases that were, a few generations ago. The mesh paneling that most cases nowadays definitely have to consider if they're going to be something competent for handling airflow is really a very important starting point. Now, as you look inside the case, aside from the airflow, you'll see that you're going to have mounting positions for both regular horizontal GPUs as well as vertical GPUs. Now, vertical GPUs, in my opinion, look amazing if you water cool your system, because then you're not dealing with any fans on the GPU. You just have a water block there, and you can just put that, right up against the glass panel. You won't have any issues. When it comes, however, to like big, bulky 4090s, I'm not so sure if I really like doing, vertical GPUs with those, just because unless you do have a lot of room, and in this case, it's a little bigger than normal, you're going to have more space between the glass and the GPU, but still, for something like a 4090 that's just air cooled, I still prefer the horizontal position, but it's great to have that vertical mounting point, maybe for a little bit smaller GPU with a less, TDP that's not going to run as hot. And of course, if you water cool, that's going to be ideal. And water cooled, I prefer to have vertical, because then you can see the water block. And if you have like a different color coolant, for example, and if the water block has RGB, then it's just, absolutely amazing. So this is really essential, and it's nice that they also provide that spacing. So Be Quiet does have a PCIe Generation 4 riser that you can get, and that's one thing you have to keep in mind, especially with AMD motherboards. Make sure you get a very high quality Gen 4 riser, because I've seen so many issues with like Gen 3 risers on AM5, for example, where like it just doesn't really work that well. There are issues with the risers. You need something that's going to work with AM5, and Intel seems to be a little better on this front, like if you're using Gen 3 or Gen 4, but I've had issues like with a 4080 on a riser, for example, on an Asus B650 motherboard, on other like X670 motherboards. So something to keep in mind. Just make sure your PCIe Gen 4 riser is a really high quality one, maybe even the Be Quiet one that they also have, but just something to keep in mind if you're going to vertically mount your GPU. Then looking at the rest of the case, build quality is still really high like all the previous generations. You have that really nice, cool design on the case feed itself. It really makes it different than other cases that just have the the regular little 4 points on the feet. This one has that nice little design. Really like that. And then cable management is really awesome in this case. Obviously, even on the front, you have these little removable panels. The previous generations, like the 900, also had these really cool removable panels. And obviously, you're going to have space for like, if you still want, legacy hard drives, if you will, like 3.5-inch hard drives, or even SSDs, 2.5-inch, if you're not just using NVMEs, you still have space for that. And of course, these little panels you can remove. And then the back is really awesome. You have lots of space for cable management. One of the biggest issues when somebody's building a PC is going to come down to cable management. If you already know what you're doing and you put all the, you put your CPU in or your connectors, everybody is left with that mess of cables. So having a case that's going to work with you, I definitely like that a lot more than cases where you just close the panel and you have to like smush it in. So this one, very nicely and smartly designed. And then when we look at the top panel, obviously you have your power button. You also have some controls for the integrated fan controller that you get, some RGB controls as well, as you'll have a little bit of RGB on the side. So that's all very, very nice. And like with other case reviews that I've done in the past, I really do like the integrated fan controller. Most of the time you're going to use a fan controller anyway, connected to your motherboard. So it's good that it comes with one, and especially when you have some controls up on top, that certainly removes a step of you having to get an additional part. So that's a nice little addition and something that helps to make this case nice and premium. So overall, certainly a very nice premium case. You would expect it as well, being over $200 with a retail price of $229. So we're talking about a very high-end case here. The only thing that I would prefer is to use the RGB fans. The Be Quiet RGB fans look incredible with a little ring. So they add like a huge amount of flair to the cases. While I appreciate the more stealth builds, and they do look cool as well, and the fans are very high quality, I don't mind the extra cables with the RGB, FX fans that Be Quiet has, because they look unbelievably good. But of course, you could always add them in anyway. It doesn't matter, and you can use these fans maybe in some area where it's not visible or something like that. But overall, Very high quality case. It's great to build in. You have cable management galore, you know, different spots on the back, on the front as well. Everything's put together very nicely. And obviously being, you know, lots of mesh, airflow is not going to be an issue. So this case is going to last you no matter what powerful GPUs come next from, you know, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel. So that's certainly something that's very, very good. All right, guys, let me know what you think down below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.